Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm here with my buddy Kurt. He is here to share his success story with us. Hey Kurt, how's it going?
It's going awesome. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but
Yeah,
given the times, I can't complain.
yeah. So, tell me a little bit about your health before you were on carnivore.
Yeah. I've been carnivore for 15 months, but for about 3 or 4 years leading up to before I went to carnivore, I had a lot of gut issues, really bad anxiety. I had skin issues where I would just have like blemishes, and I really just wasn't feeling good from like a mental stable feel good, just feeling like I could kind of conquer things. And so it was really kind of just a really dark time for me. I was a newer entrepreneur, and in my kind of journey is learning how to run my businesses and grow in that, I thought it would be really healthy to like eat a lot of plant foods and these superfood smoothies and all these different sort of great concoctions of kale and spinach and cacao, and so I really did that and like kind of adopted the whole superfood mainstream thing that was going on. I was following Bulletproof as well, like all the Bulletproof bars, and every day, Yeka, was like I had gut issues. Like it was pretty much like once I had the first thing, whether it was like a butter coffee with like a Bulletproof bar or had some sort of smoothie, my gut was like not going to feel at ease. And so that really just gave me this foundation where I started my days, and I was kind of just like already sort of dreading things by like 10 in the morning. And it was pretty much a cycle that repeated. And I ended up having a panic attack in my office one day, and I started like sweating and just I was stressed out with business stuff too, but a huge factor of it was just like what I was putting in my body and how I was responding to that. And so the carnivore diet really helped me just calm all that down and make big changes. But going into it, I was kind of desperate to just get a good grounding and get a good kind of just foundation for feeling better, because I felt like I was just stuck emotionally and physically. I wasn't like able to make progress, even though I thought I was eating super healthy.
Okay,
Yeah.
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 And so, what what brought you to carnivore? How did you start doing that?
So you probably know Dr. Paul Saladino. Me and him actually randomly met at a rock climbing gym that we both worked out at in Seattle. So I'm from Seattle, and he was doing his residency there in Seattle. And we both went to this place called Seattle Bouldering Project. And we would be there at like 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, doing lifting, exercise movements, and go use the sauna. And so I kind of met him through that community, and we just became buddies. We were just kind of like started talking, and he was really fit, and I was like into the same stuff he was into, and he was very sort of technical about what he was talking about and in what he had done. He at the time, I mean, this was like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. So it was a while ago compared to where we are now in the community. Like, I mean, I've been on a carnivore diet for 15 months, and I feel like it really hit mainstream when Dr. Baker went on Joe Rogan and just brought it all out, like, what, 2 years ago. So we were buds, and we were going to the gym, and I was just sharing with him because I knew he was studying psychiatry, that I was feeling like crap, and I just was not able to kick this feeling of anxiety, this feeling of just kind of not feeling like I could be resilient and handle what I was dealing with on a day to day. And so we did a whole like round of labs with what Paul had known, and we did like all my lipids and all my hormones and all my blood work for my micronutrients and vitamins and things like that. And then we did a whole panel on my GI, like we did all my gut stuff to see if there's any sort of like, H. pylori or SIBO, stuff like that, where we kind of looking to see what kind of the gut diversity was. And I was kind of like hoping there would be something really obvious, but there was nothing. It was like the panel showed that I was really healthy. We even looked at my genetics, and my genetics were like, he's like, you have really good genetics. Like there's not even a genetics like indicator here. So I had him do a consult with me back in like 2018, like early 2018. And we just looked at a few things, and he kind of just gave me some general recommendations for a few different supplements, and we didn't know about the carnivore diet. Then we went into like summer of 2018. Dr. Baker went on Joe Rogan. Both Paul and I like to listen to podcasts and things like that. And so he found out about the Joe Rogan interview, and I saw the Jordan Peterson conversation with how he was able to really tame and calm his depression, and how his daughter was able to really reverse a lot of her autoimmune stuff using that. And then Paul was like, I'm going to go into this thing. And I was like, okay. And so he started doing the carnivore diet. And this was probably like August of 2018. And after like a month, he's like, Kurt, I think you should do this. I think you really should get into this. And I was like, okay, I'll look into this. You know, you're pretty smart. Like I think you probably know what you're talking about. Like, give it a shot. But he didn't know anything about it. I mean, none of us really did. We're still learning about it now. And so I started doing the carnivore diet, and probably like a lot of people who listen to this, like I had gut issues. Like the first thing I had was like, I was eating the wrong fats. I was adding a lot of butter, and I was getting like the jars of tallow Epic brand from Whole Foods, and like, you know, cooking all my meats in those and like pouring them on top of my meats. And it was like, oh man, the food tasted great. My skin really cleared up, ironically, and my mood started feeling a lot better. But I had these crazy bloating gut issues from just all the sort of processed fat that I was eating. And so me and Paul were kind of just like bouncing ideas off each other and how we were optimizing it. And over the course of the months, I started to kind of just do my own research and dig more into it, along with kind of tandem bouncing ideas off of Paul and interacting with him. And he was really going down the rabbit hole with the science, which was just beyond my pay grade. I just didn't understand all the chemistry of what he was doing. But what was really cool was like, I was able to really kind of like put some of the pieces together that he was sharing with me. And I was able to really, more importantly, like dial in the diet so I could like get rid of the gut issues. And that was like, that was like a huge part of it. It was just figuring out how to make my gut stable. So the short answer to kind of like, how did I get into it and like what sort of transition happened? Well, I met Paul Saladino and we were buddies, and he went into it and I kind of followed his lead. And ever since September of 2018, I've been pretty much a strict carnivore. And I started a YouTube channel last year, and I just really started it to document my own journey and just propagate out what I was learning in my style of kind of synthesizing that information. And so it's been a really fun journey, and it's been life-changing. Like after about, I'd say 4 or 5 months of just figuring out what foods I could eat, getting a better quality source of eggs, fats, learning about raw fat, which is so crazy. Like for most people, I think that you can just eat the fat raw, and like, that's the way you probably should eat it. That's been a game changer. And I've been able to really, really feel a difference in my gut, my health. A lot of people tell me like, you just look really healthy. I feel healthy. My skin really cleared up. I have really stable energy. I don't think it's a hyperbole or that I'm totally bought into this. Like I just feel pretty good. I mean, I will say like midday, I typically have a nap or just a low, but I think that's just like our circadian rhythm. And for the most part, like I wake up and I just feel great. I'm like, I feel happy. I feel good. I sleep better. My hormones are awesome. My testosterone's been tested 3 times. It's really robust. Yeah, it's been a great journey.
Wow, I love that. And so when you said you basically do hardcore or strict carnivore, what kind of foods were you eating in the beginning? I know you said you were eating the Epic tallow, but what other kind of meats and things like that were you eating?
So I kind of started with just phasing out all the plant foods I had, and I was a big avocado guy. So I would eat like, 1 to 2 avocados a day. I would eat like tomatoes. I would have my spinach salad pretty regularly throughout the week. So I started getting rid of those foods, and I never had I always enjoyed red meat. So I never had a problem with red meat personally. So I would just start eating actually like burgers. Like I had burgers. And then I started getting like chuck roast and some of the cheaper grass-fed cuts from like Whole Foods. And I was in Seattle at the time. So, but I was just kind of moving to Austin. So I really started finding the farmers markets down here in Austin. And we're so lucky to be in Central Texas. And we have literally probably some of the best carnivore access in terms of foods. So I started learning about suet. Paul actually turned me on to it. So I'll credit Dr. Paul with that. And one day he just came in, he was like coming into one of the conferences, and he usually just stays with me. And he like pulled out this bag of like raw fat. And I was like, what is that? You know? And I was like, but when I started, I would eat everything. And I ate a lot of bacon, which personally is not most optimal in my experience. I don't feel the best on it. I was eating a lot of bacon, even the like organic kind. I find like it cooks in the grease. It tends to have higher histamine. It's more processed. It's just, it's delicious, but I don't feel as good on it. So I was eating a lot of that. I thought liver was like the end all be all. So at one point I overdid liver, and I like ate too much liver. I think I ate like 100 grams of liver, like 5 ounces of liver raw every day for like a month and a half. And like, I was like, I don't think I feel good. I texted Paul one day and I was like, I think I got vitamin A toxicity or something, because I'm just like eating this so much. And he's like, just back off a little bit. And but when I first started, I ate everything. I ate chicken, turkey, ground beef, some chuck roast, and I was just kind of like eating anything that was an animal food. And once I started to sort of, I think, clear up from the plant molecules that were sort of just going away in my body, like the avocados and the spinach and the oxalates and all that stuff, I started to notice that certain animal foods did much better for me than others. So I was noticing, like, for example, like chicken and like light meat, like breast, I didn't feel nearly as good on that. Or like scrambled eggs, like if you scramble them up, I don't feel as good. I know we've done some cooks together on my channel, and we make tortillas and like all these scrambles, and they're delicious. And certainly the egg quality makes a big difference, but I find like I just feel way better if I stick really closely to mainly just grass-fed red meat, like beef and some bison maybe. And then there's some, some venison and elk, some of the wild game stuff that they have. I find like those darker cuts are much more, they don't seem to be as triggering to me, and they seem to be a little bit more fulfilling and satiating. So I right now probably eat 80% just grass-fed beef from White Oak Pastures. And then it's a variety of cuts. I get their chuck roast, their ossobuco. I like shank. I eat shank pretty often. And then I eat a lot of suet, like grass-fed fat trimmings and suet. And I cycle in and out of egg yolks. I'll eat egg yolks as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And so other than the bloating issues from having the rendered fats, did you have any other issues transitioning to carnivore, or was that basically the only issue you had?
Definitely. I think the way that you cook food on the carnivore diet has a huge impact. So not just the rendered fats, but also like how you prepare your meats. Like personally for me, I don't feel really good if I do like crock pot cooks. So it sucks because they taste delicious and they're amazing. And you can throw all kinds of different meats in there and you get all the flavor, and like you do the low and slow, and you can make the tendons all soft. So I switched to a pressure cooker because from my research and experience, the cook time really does affect like histamine tolerance and can like build that up. And I have directly had bad experience where like I'll eat something from a crock pot and my head just like, it just expands. And I'm just like, I get a lot of my reaction comes in like my sinuses. And then my gut usually does okay with those kinds of cooks, but I also have to be careful because like a slow cook will also liquefy pretty much all the fat. And then for whatever reason, even like a marble section of a steak, if it's liquefied, when I eat it, I don't feel good on it. So I have to be really careful with that. I mainly just eat meat on a stainless steel pan. I just sear it and I cook it on the surface rare, like super rare, and just cook the surface. And then I try to eat liver pretty much raw when I have it. I'm also playing around with drinking blood. I like drinking the organ meat blood and the blood that comes out of the bag from the meats that ships. So when they thaw out, because it's like, I know it's fresh. I know the source. I've been to the farm. I trust the source. There's obviously like a lot of vitamins and minerals in the blood. So I've been doing that. Other nuances in the food though, I would say the other thing too is like watching out for some of the more processed things like canned fish, like sardines, or different qualities of meat. Some meats just don't do as well for me. Like I said before in the mention of chicken, like I can eat chicken a little bit, but if I eat a lot of chicken, I don't know, I just don't feel that good on it. So it could be the quality of chicken. I haven't really played around too much with a lot of sourcing of different kinds of chicken. Um, I have gotten some turkey from White Oak, and I've done really well with that. I have found certain pork is quite triggering for me. And that kind of jives with what I've looked up in terms of the impact that people have with pork. Pork can be a higher histamine food. Also, a lot of the pork can be raised on a feed and they can get soy hormones. Pigs are just a little bit more free eating, if you will, to like eat pretty much anything. And so it's harder to kind of find the pigs that maybe are the best. But so I really just steer towards beef because I just feel so optimal on it. And I don't mind eating it all the time. The trick is for me just to like kind of mix up the cuts and just make sure I'm not eating chuck roast after chuck roast after chuck roast. Cause you do get bored after, you just eat the same freaking thing every day. So yeah, I think it's just watching out for the fats, watching out for the histamines, because histamines will just trigger you and cause a lot of allergic reactions in your body if you cook foods a certain way or you get the wrong sourcing or it's just not super fresh and it's canned or something. And then other than that, I do pretty well with pretty much everything else.
Yeah, I think a lot of carnivores can agree with the chicken statement for sure. I feel like,
Yeah.
it's just not as nutrient dense
Yeah.
as,
Do you think
as
that's,
beef or red meat.
is that why you think that? Because it's pretty lean, right? And it's not
Yeah,
nutrient dense.
it's pretty lean. It's not as nutrient dense. And then also, even with the higher quality chicken, they raise the chickens to, be slaughtered in a shorter lifespan than a cow or other red meats. So they're more like of whatever their feed is. And even a lot of organic pasture raised chickens are still going to be eating chicken and they're still going to be eating corn and soy
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
And so, I think that might be one of the main reasons too why some people just don't really feel that good off of eating chicken. Or like for me, when I eat chicken, I could probably eat a whole rotisserie chicken in one sitting, and then I'll still be hungry a little bit later in the day. But yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And there's so much the jerkies too. There's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? Like there's so many jerkies with soy sauce on them and sugar. And the sugar's not too bad, but I wonder how much soy they're actually getting and what quality that is and how it's affecting my hormones.
Hmm.
So, that I don't do a lot of jerky just because I don't find that I need to eat that much on the diet. Like I do 2 meals a day, breakfast, like a late breakfast and an early dinner, and then I'm pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, and so can we just do a little recap of what the benefits you've seen since you've been doing carnivore?
Yeah, I would say the biggest benefit by far was anxiety. For me, I noticed a drastic and probably the biggest lever was having like a low level of anxiety. And I think it was also largely due to the fact that I was able to dial in my gut and make sure that my gut was able to feel at ease. So the anxiety dropped when I got rid of the plant foods, but it still was there. But once I figured out how to like eat more fresh meat and not eat the canned foods and go off and eat all these different types of meats and stay away from some of the slow cooks that I was doing from time to time, I saw a big difference in my anxiety. And that was like huge. Also, a lot of people comment on my skin. It's really clear. Um, I don't have really any more acne or blemishes. Once I got on the diet, for whatever reason, it just cleared up super clear. So I had Accutane when I was a kid. So I went on Accutane and I had to like, it really dried me up and like messed up my sinuses. And they were like, they take your blood every month on that. And it's just a nasty medication that you take to deal with acne. And I had terrible acne as a kid. So that wasn't a terrible issue because I treated it with Accutane going into carnivore. But I did have I would always have like a zit, like right here on your nose or like inside your nose where it kind of hurts. Or, I'd have some blemishes on my face or around my shoulders or somewhere. That all kind of cleared up and went away. And then the gut issues thing was massive. Like just my gut issues going away once I did the diet the right way and I figured out what worked well was like that alone has been life changing.
That's great. I love hearing all of that. Well, thanks so much for sharing. And then also, you have just come out with a book. Tell me a little bit about your book.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Dr. Paul Saladino wrote the foreword for my book. It's called The Carnivore Diet, an ancestral reset to optimal human health. So I have 140 pages of a book. It's got 28 sections. I go through my story of being the entrepreneur and being stressed out and having anxiety and following these ketogenic, bulletproof, super smoothie type foods and what that did to me. And then I talk about how I met Paul and how we connected and started exploring the diet. And then I talk about really what I've learned about the diet, which has been quite a bit. I mean, since I got into it, I don't even know how many hours I've spent, but writing a book takes months, and I spent many months just kind of going through it. And so I go into what the carnivore diet is, because I kind of had some real anxiety even about the diet. Cause it's so it goes against the grain on so many things. Right. And you're like, am I missing nutrients? Am I going to make my heart explode? Am I gonna, what is red meat going to give you cancer? Like everyone here in the world is telling us all these things. So the book is really my journey and my discovery about all that stuff. So I talk about what the diet is, why it might work for people, how it's ancestrally consistent to some of the anthropological stuff we've looked at. I talk about the toxicity, go into studies. I have 100 studies referenced in the book and resources. I do the lipids. I share my blood work of my lipids after being on the carnivore diet for over a year. So people can see this is what your cholesterol looks like. This is what your LDL, HDL, VLDL, all your inflammation markers like HSCRP, your kidney function, your renal function. What does your testosterone look like if you're a man? I wouldn't be able to show you what it looks like if it's a woman, but we look at all those hormones. I look at my micronutrients, my vitamin D. So I share all that in the book, and I talk about really the adaptation part, which is really big. And about a third of it is about the mindset. And I'm a big kind of mindset person. And so I talk about emotional eating, and I spend chapters on this because I just think from a person coming into this diet, it can be really restrictive, and you have to have a lot of good grounding reasons. And most people have enough pain to want to do this diet. And that's oftentimes what just gets them over the hump. But for other people, it's they need more than that. Or they need to be just really clear about why they did it, because, a cheesecake comes across the table from their spouse or some friends, and it's they want to take a bite, and it's well, do you remember that eczema breakout you had a week ago? And the fact that you stopped having that eczema scratchy and it went away. So I talk about the mindset. I talk about the spectrum of plant molecule toxicity to tolerability, nose to tail, cooking, what we kind of went into with our discussion about histamine and rendered fat and how best to cook the food, because that was such a big challenge for me in my journey. And then I close it out with grass-fed versus grain-fed and an exploration into how those animals are raised, what vegans are kind of tied up on with the planet and animal cruelty, and how maybe it's really not that bad, and weight loss and just some FAQ. So it's pretty comprehensive.
That's great. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to hear what you have to think.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know. Well, thanks again so much for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Was there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I would say for anyone that's interested in this diet, like there I know there's not a lot of like published long-term studies, but there's so many anecdotes now, and people like you and myself and the amazing writers like Dr. Baker and Dr. Saladino have put some resources out there, and it's really becoming clear to me and like to a lot of people in the community that this way of consuming food can really help reverse a lot of chronic disease. So I would say take a jump on it, do some research, get some books, whether it's mine or not. And, people can go to my YouTube if they want to get free resources there. They can check out Instagram with your stuff and my stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Love it. Well, we'll be sure to put your link for your book down below as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yeka.
Thank you.